Our story begins in West Africa. The sun sets behind the horizon, painting the sky in different colors, and a view of the Institute of Biochemistry opens up before us. But inside the institute, it is not calm scientists in coats conducting research, but dead military guards lie, and alarm sounds are heard everywhere. One of the researchers lies dead, with his cold hand posthumously clutching an unidentified object in a cube to his chest. But this mysterious object did not stay with the deceased for long. It was taken away by someone's hand in a black glove. Our main character took the cube, and immediately through the communication, he reported that his name is North Sheps. He belongs to the 6th group of special units, and the blood pathogenic virus was successfully obtained. Before North could even take a step with his successfully stolen acquisition, a shot rang out behind him. The bullet missed him, but it did break the cube in which the virus was contained. The main character is terrified. Fragments of the cube fly into his face, leaving cuts on his face, and the liquid with the virus splashes onto his wounds. Special Agent Sheps grabs his weapon and fires several bursts at his opponent. His comrades want to run up with Nortu, but he shouts at them not to approach him because he is infected. Infected with the virus, he feels changes and DNA mutations occurring in his body. We are transported 3 years forward. We are greeted by the night city of Brookboard. We can see a large building of a corporation called Cloud Main. At 9 o'clock in the evening, at the end of the working day, the cleaner washes the floors, humming the tune of a song stuck in his head in the office. This worker, so diligently washing the office floors, turns out to be our main character. He has finally finished work and wants to go home. Before leaving, he turns off the office lights and immediately notices that one of the computer screens is still on. Walking towards the burning monitor, he laments how unprofessional it is for workers to leave the equipment on after leaving. But when he approaches the screen, he freezes in place. A video of erotic content appears on the screen in front of him, to which the hero quickly turns away in embarrassment and wonders how anyone can watch this at work. Just as North begins to try to turn off the video, a girl approaches him from behind and wonders what's going on here. The main character was not at a loss. Turning and looking at the girl with a look full of confidence, he said his position. He is a new employee and is now on duty. A pretty girl stands in front of him. She thoughtfully asks what he is doing at the computers, because his shift is already over. North turns back to the computer and tries to continue trying to turn off the racy video, only now the heroine notices what is happening on the monitor. The girl is simply horrified. She is scared and embarrassed. She exclaims about whether he is ashamed to watch something like this. Before our main character can say 2 words, a pillow flies straight into his face. The heroine calls him a dirty pervert and does not understand how one can watch such nasty things, while North stands and rubs his sore nose after a blow. The business employee cannot tolerate such indecency in the workplace. She declares that she will fire him tomorrow morning and asks him to hand over his badge. Without ceasing to rub his nose, Mr. Sheps tries to explain to the girl that this whole situation is just a misunderstanding. The heroine becomes furious. She shouts that there can be no misunderstanding, insists that he was caught by the hand, and whether he is a man at all. North tries to apologize and explain that he was just passing by, and he doesn't think it's normal to watch such videos on the company computer. The main character just wanted to be nice, which ultimately backfired on him. But he wonders why this girl got so excited when she saw him. Not wanting to listen to any excuses and answer tricky questions, the girl, furious, accelerates and wants to kick North. Don't forget that our cleaner was a former agent of a secret unit. He deftly grabbed the girl's leg. He looks into her eyes with gloating and says that without understanding the situation, there is no point in insulting someone. The heroine is frozen in a daze and tries to analyze how he was able to intercept her blow, because she studied martial arts since childhood. But before she has time to come to her senses, North throws her onto the table, where porn continues to play on the screen. The hero notices that she is lying in an excellent position. While the girl continues to call him a pervert, he grabs her by the shoulders, hanging on top, and says that in this case he should show her what a real pervert looks like. Suddenly, instead of all kinds of punishments that the protagonist's imagination could invent, he armed himself with a marker and got to work. Having completed her revenge, on the heroine's face, there are inscriptions about what a fierce demon she is. She threatens that he will answer for everything he has done. But North is not so simple. He managed to photograph the girl's painted face and threatened her that if she wanted to make an attack in his direction, he would publish the photo on the company forum. And as if nothing had happened, the main character takes his bucket and mop and moves towards the exit, mentioning that he was not the first to attack. Out of accumulated anger and despair, the heroine hits the table with all her fist. Shedding tears and clenching her teeth in anger, she swears to Lilith Paulman that this bastard will pay her for everything. The location is transferred to inconspicuous city slums, where when the sun sets it is better not to stick your head out of the house. After a hard day and an equally hard evening, our main character comes home. The first thing he does is open the refrigerator, which is filled from top to bottom with beer, and the side shelves are littered with syringes. North wanted to open a can of beer, but suddenly he felt a sharp pain. Even the can of beer flew out of his hands. Without missing a beat, he grabs a syringe from the refrigerator and injects it into his arm. The reason for such pain is the pathogen, which becomes stronger each time than the previous one. The syringe he grabbed, it turns out, contained the Ebola virus. But this deadly Ebola virus is still not enough for the hero. In a few days, he thinks that he will have to sneak into the institute again to take more similar samples. North wonders if they changed the security system, because so far he has been coming and going from there without any problems. The memories of that fateful day, how he became infected and asked everyone to go without him, are still fresh in his head. To a natural question from his colleagues about what he was going to do, he answered that nothing could be done, and life or death was a matter of fate. Finally, North told his colleague to ask for a leave of absence for him and tell him that he would not be able to return to the team now. He reflects on the past years. The virus made him a savage. He had to live in the forest for more than a year. The virus was not cured, but now he is not contagious. The urn filled with syringes standing next to the bed has a simple explanation. The only way to relieve the pain is to introduce another virus into the body. The main character thinks how long this will continue and is sure that everything is in the hands of fate. At night, while North is sleeping peacefully, changes begin to occur in his body again. Something has gone wrong. He suddenly feels pain all over his body. The hero does not understand why the Ebola virus did not work. Perhaps the virus came with new mutations and DNA rearrangements after all these years. The morning rays of the sun penetrate through the window and illuminate North lying on the floor. The main character suddenly wakes up, jumps up and tries to understand whether he is alive or dead, and most importantly, to figure out what happened last night. He notices an unidentified molecule floating in the air before his eyes. He pokes at it, trying to figure out if it is a virus. North tries, thinks logically, and thinks that these are hallucinations, because even with excellent vision, it is impossible to see something like this without a microscope. Mr. Sheps understands that something is wrong. He has never seen a virus in person. The main character extends his hand to one of the flying molecules, and it flies up to him and connects with him energetically. Looking around, North realizes that all the viruses that he injected himself over the course of 3 years are flying around him. This news pleases the main character. He sees the benefit in this. Now he has the ability to absorb microorganisms and bacteria for his own needs. Mr. Sheps takes a metal pipe in his hand and tries to corrode it with the help of bacteria. Everything worked out perfectly. Corrosion quickly began to corrode the pipe. North is happy, but understands that such an ability requires a lot of physical effort from him. The main character notices a virus that he has not seen before. He understands that by absorbing other microorganisms, he will be able to develop and create new abilities in the future. Mr. Sheps is completely delighted. He has just survived a disaster but has become stronger. The hero bursts out laughing. But his laughter did not last long. He lost his breath and felt unwell. North realizes that he has spent too much energy and cannot stand on his feet. He falls asleep. The morning at the office of the Cloud Main Corporation begins with the workers greeting Miss Paulman and wishing her good morning. Tall and stately Miss Lilith Paulman comes into the office. Her assets amount to billions of dollars, and her nickname is the Ice Goddess. Walking into her office, she sits down on a chair and rubs her butt, still hurt from yesterday's incident. 2 images of her from yesterday are spinning in her head, her with inscriptions on her face, and her lying helplessly on the table. This whole situation does not let her go. It is a great humiliation for her, and she thinks about the notorious janitor. Lilith, placing her head on the table, laments about yesterday's abuse of her by her own employee, and also the janitor. She holds her head and thinks about how to tell Kaylee, who will come soon, about yesterday's incident. At this moment, a curvaceous lady appears in the corridor, who, stepping on the threshold, almost twists her ankle. The secretary at the entrance tells her that Miss Paulman is already waiting for her in the office, to which the girl impressively replies that she is already aware. Standing on the threshold is a girl named Kaylee Fima. She is the vice president of the Cloud Main Company, called a little fox who loves to torment others. Entering the office, she is impatient and immediately tries to find out from her sister what happened, because when she called, her voice sounded very excited. Taking a break from her soul-searching, Lilith finally notices her sister at the door, greets her, and asks her to sit down. Miss Fima immediately lay down on the sofa, kicked off her shoes, and began stroking her almost sprained ankle, mentioning that it wouldn't hurt to go to the spa today. Looking at how her sister openly lay down on the sofa, she asks the question what will happen if some man comes in here now and finds her in this form. To which Kaylee replies with a malicious smile that no one will dare to enter here without permission, and if someone dares, she will squeeze him dry. Immediately she relaxes and talks about what nonsense all this is, and now the only thing that matters is what happened to her older sister. Lilith realizes that she cannot tell her sister about her humiliation yesterday. Instead, she asks if she brought her the information for which the request was made. Kaylee obediently hands her a paper envelope and wants to find out if there is something important there, to which her sister says she wants to find out information about a suspicious person. Kaylee asks in surprise what this man has done and whether he knows what this could mean for him. Having opened the dossier and carefully scanned her eyes, she is convinced that this is her tormentor, and his name is North Sheps. She jumps up from the table screaming, throws the questionnaire on the table, shouting that it is him. After this sharp jerk, Lilith realizes that her butt still hurts. Miss Fima notices that something is wrong with her sister and tries to find out why she turned so pale. The head of the office shows her the questionnaire and gives his sister the task of making him suffer for the next few days. Although her sister loves to torture people, she doesn't understand why she needs to take revenge on an ordinary janitor who can simply be fired. Miss Paulman stands her ground. Dismissal is too lenient a punishment for her. She wants Kaylee to do everything possible to finish him off. Kaylee approaches her older sister and starts patting her on the head, asking if she's okay and why she's so angry. Without saying the whole point of the situation, she only mentions that he offended her and that she is generally in a bad mood, and she chose him to vent her anger. Miss Fima reluctantly agrees. Dealing with a janitor is not particularly suitable for her, but it is important for her that her sister feels comfortable. Kaylee assures that her sister can relax because she is a pro in her field, to which Lilith offers to take on part of her work in gratitude. The flirtatious vice president heads to the door and finally says that her sister always knows what she loves, and if she were a man, she would repay her with her body. As soon as the door to the office slams shut, the head of the office again picks up the questionnaire of the janitor she hates and examines it. Hatred surged inside her with renewed vigor. She grabs a pen and swings at the sheet, repeating that she won't let it go until it spits blood. She forcefully pierces North's photo on the application form with a pen and shouts that she will watch him very closely. Our main character continues to lie on the floor unconscious in the rays of the already setting sun. North woke up in the morning and, looking at his phone, discovered that he had been asleep for 3 days. For so many days of absence from work, he could be deprived of wages. Quickly getting ready, he puts on his jacket and runs out of the house, because now losing his job is not an option at all. North quickly runs across the block and hopes that he can't get fired just yet. Running down the street, he smells the smell of fried pies that his friend Mr. Heistonen is preparing. The main character stops and asks him for 2 pies to take with him. A friend is worried about him because his daughter-in-law reported North's absence from work lately, to which Sheps brushes it off and says that he was sick. Mr. Heistonen invites the main character to visit today to taste good wine. North readily agrees because his shift ends early today anyway, so he will come after work. At the same time, Vice President Kaylee wondered where her goal had been for all 3 days, because she had prepared a show, but for some reason the main character was late for it. Finally, she gets a call on the phone. They say that the target is in place. Miss Fima tells the employee to behave as they agreed, otherwise she will fire him. Lilith comes into the office and excitedly tells her sister that she heard about his arrival. The vice president solemnly displays a tablet on which video from hidden cameras is broadcast and invites his sister to enjoy the show. North is standing in the department director's office and trying to justify himself to the boss, Jake, telling him not to be angry with him and to let him explain everything. To which the boss refuses to listen to his explanations, says that North is an insolent, lazy person, absent without a good reason. The janitor says that the reason for the absence is family circumstances. Noticing that the boss does not really believe in his legend, he begins to refer to the fact that he is just a cleaner and a small grain in the company and asks him to forgive him this time. Seeing that these methods do not work, Sheps casually says that last month someone, hinting at the director, did not show up for work for 7 or 8 days. The director quickly changes his face and is afraid that the janitor will drag him away with him because they are being watched. He asks him to stop talking and carefully tries to hint to North that there are cameras around them. The janitor makes a fool of himself, telling the boss that there is no one here or he saw something invisible. But the instincts of the former agent work with a bang. He notices many hidden cameras, of which, in his opinion, there are too many in the manager's office. He began to clearly understand that someone wanted to lure him into a trap and set him up. North begins to say in a loud voice that the department director once said nasty things about the vice president, that after her death a lot of people will want to urinate on her grave. The head of the department just sits in tears and just prays to himself that this janitor won't drag him along with him. Kaylee is simply furious. She entrusts herself with teaching him a good lesson, to which her older sister supports her and says that they will make this idiot respect her. The enraged boss, through clenched teeth, assigns more and more new responsibilities to North, cleaning the bathrooms on each floor and telling him to forget about bonuses at the end of the month. The main character is happy about this outcome of events because he is young and energetic. The most important thing is that he was not fired. In this whole situation, our cleaner does not hesitate to ask the boss for a loan. The boss notes the impudence of the employee and tells him to get out of sight. North quickly leaves, slamming the door behind him. After finishing the show, Kaylee suggests that her sister transfer the janitor to the administrative department, where they will be more comfortable mocking him and overloading him with work. Lilith does not agree with this proposal, because why would a guy who barely graduated from high school join the administrative department? For her, he is only suitable for cleaning floors. But our main character is not so simple. He bought his high school diploma for $200. The girls continue to watch North through cameras, and the vice president notes the young man's good physical shape and offers to put him as a security guard. The head of the office becomes furious at such a proposal. In her opinion, he does not deserve it because he is a vile, illiterate bastard. Miss Fema looks at her sister with bewilderment and wants to know why she is in such a bad mood today. Lilith replies that the reason for his bad mood is the janitor, and reminds her younger sister not to forget to teach him a good lesson tomorrow. The vice president shows her an okay gesture and assures her that he will do everything in the proper manner. On one of the floors, North is stretching in the bathroom. He has already finished work and is about to go home. But the main character remembers that he promised Mr. Heistonen to look at them in the evening. He also needs to go to the store so as not to go empty-handed on a visit. North returns to the department head's office to report the end of work, to which the head bids him farewell. The cleaner smiles and, with a naive smile on his face, asks the boss to lend him some money for groceries. The boss again shouts about the employee's shamelessness. We are transported to a very dysfunctional area where people disappear and bandits and the mafia rule. If you are someone's target while walking down this street, in most % of cases you will be dead. In the evening, a fair-haired girl walks along a dark alley. This is not her first time in this area, and she carefully looks around. Hearing footsteps behind her and seeing a shadow on the road, she, succumbing to panic, begins to run forward. Our main character walked behind her. He doesn't understand how she could be scared of him, because he looks like a gentleman. North even suggests that this girl is blind. Chwika still does not leave the former Special Forces soldier. In the gateway, he notices guys who most likely do not have good intentions. Sheps thinks to warn the fleeing stranger about this. North tries to stop the girl by shouting, to which she only begins to run faster in greater fear, simultaneously calling the main character a pervert. Confused, Mr. Sheps freezes in place, shouting that calling him a pervert is too much. Continuing to run and look back, The girl thinks about how obscene this man looks, assuming that he refers to Hector Grine, who was stalking her before. But the escape did not last long. A man blocked her way, shouting the name Emma. A seemingly inveterate bandit stands in front of her, smilingly talking about how glad he is to meet you, trying to find out if she is in a hurry to go home. Standing in her way, he says that today is his birthday, and he invites her to his home, to which Emma asks him not to bother her and mentions that she has a boyfriend. Hector approaches her, takes her chin with his hand, and asks if she is in a hurry to go on a date. The villain does not intend to let his victim down and invites her to spend a couple of nights with him, to which the girl begs to leave her alone, otherwise she will call the police. The bandit threatens that if she calls the police, he will kill her and make the girl's family suffer. Noting the glory of this street of missing people, he says that she too can get lost here. As soon as he finished all his threats, out of nowhere a large red apple flies into his face. Emma, shocked by everything that is happening, looks around trying to figure out who her savior is, and another thug runs to Hector to find out how he is. The main character comes out of the shadows and says that he is very sorry for the apple because he bought it as a gift, and he would like to return it. Hector rises from the ground with blood flowing from his nose and asks which hero dared to attack him from behind. North tells him that he is not the one who is looking for justice, but came here just to see if he will make a profit here. Emma stands in a stupor. She remembers that this pervert was stalking her, and now he also wants to hurt her. The villain, having heard the protagonist's speeches, was delighted, thinking that he was one of them, even offered to share the girl with him when he finished, and asked North to help drag her into the car. Sheps loses his nerve. He begins to shout at Hector, wanting to know what he wants to do with this girl. The hooligans stand with their eyes wide open in surprise. They clearly did not expect such a turn of events. The main character begins to move towards the guys, at the same time introducing himself as the manager of the Red Scarf organization, which is aimed at helping in risky situations. North begins to convince Emma to agree to their company's services, citing the cost of packages of their services at various prices. A special agent offers the girl a premium package for $5,000, which will allow her to get rid of troubles forever. He bows before the stranger and warns that they have a private company that does not accept counteroffers, asking her to think about his proposal. Hector could not stand it, and grabbing a knife, he runs away, shouting threats, planning to stab the main character until he dies. Without hesitation, Emma shouts in a panic that she agrees to the premium package. With a smile on her face, North thanks the girl for her trust, assuring her that she made the right choice. The agent knocks the knife out of the attacker's hands and hits Hector in the face with force, so that the bully flies away, spraying blood from his nose. The criminal, rising from the ground, spits on his palm, and two of his bloody knocked-out teeth appear on it. With an animal look, Hector looks at the main character and exclaims that no one in this area has subjected him to such humiliation. North walks up to the thug sitting on the ground and kicks him in the face, congratulating him on his first time. Hector's friend, standing aside with a knife in his hand, begins to approach Emma, blaming her for everything, threatening to kill her today. But our main character, with lightning speed, finds himself behind the enemy and makes a grab. The criminal tries to escape, and the knife falls out of his hands. The enemy is defeated and falls face down on the asphalt with a roar. The girl looks at this picture and wonders who her savior is. North Sheps takes two thugs and with a smile reports a successfully completed mission, offering Emma a diamond package, which includes complete disposal of these guys, whose traces will not even be found. The stranger does not agree to this. She believes that her savior can really do what he says. Emma thanks North and blesses him for his good deeds, but Schweppes does not need the blessing. He persistently offers retribution. The girl replies that she would rather save money, hands him the bills, and says that she is a little short. So far, she can only give him $300. The main character, counting the money, asks the girl how poor she is, but she vows to give the rest of the money later because she only recently got a job. Fanning herself with money, North says that Emma can pay for everything else in installments at interest. At the same time, he demonstrates to the stranger how their company deals with deceivers while kicking Hector in the groin. With tears in his eyes, the bully asks how this is possible, and who is this person who humiliated him so much. The girl decides to formally introduce herself. Her name is Emma Heistinen. She works in the surgical department of the hospital and vows to pay off the rest of the debt. The main character likes the girl's openness and sincerity. He gives her the opportunity not to pay this month. Emma bows goodbye to her savior and says it's time for her to go, to which North waves her off. But while walking home, the girl notices that her hero does not leave her, but follows on her heels. Emma enters the entrance and begins to climb the stairs. Sheps does not lag behind and follows. She does not hold back and, turning to face him, says that she will definitely pay off the debt, and he already knows her place of work, and why, in addition to all this, should he know where she lives? To which the agent replies that he believes in her sincerity, and here he came to visit a friend who lives in this house. Emma begins to analyze everything that has been said. There are only a few apartments in their house, and her mother was just saying that a guest should come to them today. She asks if her savior's name is North Sheps, to which the main character is surprised and wonders how the stranger knows his name. After thinking a little more, the main character asks if she is the daughter of a donut seller with the last name Heistinen. Emma is embarrassed and confirms this information. She did not know that Uncle North was in front of her all this time. Turning away, North frowns and does not believe that Heistinen's brother can have such a beautiful daughter. He awkwardly talks about how small their age difference is, so she may not call him uncle, but Emma stands her ground because he is her father's friend. The girl's ingenuity does not sleep, and she decides to take advantage of the situation because since he is her uncle, in fact, she does not need to repay the debt. But even being her uncle, the main character stands his ground. They have already entered into an agreement that cannot be broken or cancelled. Emma runs up to North and asks for a discount, to which her uncle hesitates and allows her not to pay interest, but the rest of the payment must be paid. Having agreed on small changes to the contract, the guys hear a man walking up the stairs and pronouncing their names. In front of them stands Mr. Heistinen's wife, and also Emma's mother. Her name is Sheena, and she is extremely surprised and asks the guys how they know each other. The feast begins. Mr. Heistinen and North decide to drink a glass of alcohol before eating. From the kitchen, the housewives shout to the men that everything will be ready in a couple of minutes, and the main character replies that they can. They are not in a hurry. In the kitchen, while cooking, the mother interrogates her daughter whether Emma really didn't know a friend of their family before, to which the girl answers in the affirmative. The mother says that the uncle is a good guy, but he has no ambitions and is also lazy, to which the daughter tells the mother to speak more quietly, because North can hear it. North, sitting behind the wall with a glass in his hand, is in despair because he heard everything. Meanwhile, on the street of the ill-fated area, bandits gather to talk to the boss about today's incident in the quarter. The boss, named Theodore, lights a cigarette and wants to find out who attacked his gang in the area today. Hector, his face swollen from today's beatings, reports that the man who beat them called himself a Red Scarf. Squinting, the leader takes a drag and orders him to take care of the girl first. Stuffing food into both cheeks, North thanks her sister Sheena for her excellent and delicious cooking. Mother asks at the table if he offended anyone in the company, to which he receives a negative answer. The main character cannot remember any clashes with employees. The only such moment occurred a couple of days ago, when he was sick and did not go to work, for which his boss was angry with him. Sheena is surprised by how the senior manager reacted to this situation, but she is more worried about today's observation that all the cameras are constantly trained and watching North. The main character tries not to show that this information made him wary, because if they start digging under him, it will not end well. Emma diffuses the situation by saying that Uncle North is young, and if he offended anyone, he can easily find another job. But her savior states that in reality he gets along well with everyone and does not want to change his job yet. Mr. Heitinen notes how much he likes Brother North Sheps's tolerance and wants to drink to it. The main character is getting ready to go home and says goodbye to everyone. Thanks for dinner. Emma decides to see her uncle off. North goes out into the entrance and goes down the stairs. The girl runs after him and wants to talk about what happened today. Uncle turns around and tells her not to worry about it and go back home, or he will have to save her again. Sheena pokes her head out from behind the door of the Heistinen's apartment and asks if the guys really don't know each other. Emma fearfully says that she doesn't know him. The mother is afraid, because an affair with such a person will not bring anything good to her daughter. The girl pulls her mother back because North can hear everything. Walking down the street, the main character thinks that even the deaf would hear their screams from the landing. Emma cites as an argument that she already has a boyfriend, to which Sheena begins to bombard her with questions until the girl begs her to come in and talk about it in the apartment. Having returned home, North, out of habit, goes to the refrigerator and takes a syringe. Several days have passed, and no anomalies have been observed. At the end of this difficult day, he decides to go to bed, and the next day go to the office and find out who is watching him. In the morning in the office, the vice president is already waiting for the new show to start, because yesterday there was only a small test. Finally, a signal comes into her earpiece that the target is in place. Kaylee ordered everyone to take their positions. The main character enters the company gates, while cameras track his every step. A guard carefully runs out of the security booth with a bat and throws it at North's head. The special agent is not asleep. With peripheral vision, he saw what the worker was planning to do. He intercepted the bat without even looking back and threw it back. His accuracy is amazing. The bat flew straight into the guard's face, knocking him down. The instigator sits in the office, frowning, and orders the next group to get ready. The next test is a worker with a full sewage tank on the move, which was moving directly towards the main character. But even here, North was on alert, noticing a worker with a tank. He jumped out of the way of this shitty chariot at the speed of light. As a result, the worker himself, not calculating his strength, fell, and all the foul-smelling liquid poured onto him. Kaylee, looking at two already failed attempts at revenge, does not understand how an ordinary janitor succeeds. The main character enters the office of the head of the department, to which the boss asks him to sit down on the chair located opposite him. The vice president watches what is happening with bated breath, because she has slightly adjusted the chair. After all, according to her plan, as soon as he sits on the chair, it will break. Meanwhile, North is trying to find out why his boss called him. The janitor calmly sat down on a chair, and with a calm look, continues to wait for an answer from the boss to find out what's going on. The boss and the head of the department fall into a stupor. They do not understand why their insidious plan did not work. Not knowing what to say in such a situation, the boss begins to get angry with the cleaner, saying that he made a mess yesterday. But the main character at this moment only thinks that even if cameras are watching him in the office, then the person watching occupies a very high position. The head now forces the janitor to clean the toilets on all floors 3 times a day. North happily accepts the order and gets to work. As soon as the door slammed behind North, the boss decided to check out the surprise chair and sat down on it. As soon as he sat down on the chair, like a spinning pin, the base of the chair pierced the top seat and pierced straight into the boss's ass. Kaylee sees this through the camera and can't figure out why the chair didn't work on the janitor. Lilith comes into her sister's office and asks how everything went, to which she receives a disappointing answer. The matter turned out to be more complicated than they thought. But the vice president does not despair and tells his sister how this janitor is forcing her to do something else. The older sister wonders what Kaylee wants to do, to which she secretly whispers her plans in her ear. Having learned her little sister's plans, she asks if this is too much. Miss Fema replies that for her sister's sake, she will take care of everything. The head of the office tells Kaylee that she has a meeting in the afternoon, so she remains in charge of the company. The vice president blows a kiss goodbye and tells his sister that she will do a good job. North is washing the floors in one of the bathrooms. He finally notices the camera aimed at him, and he is annoyed that even while cleaning, he continues to be followed. Mr. Sheps begins to analyze whether this could be the girl whose face he painted, but she wouldn't dare, knowing that he had a photo in his hands. The main character wants to determine where this person is. He sends his spy molecules to the administrative floor to look around. His spies checked the entire department, but found nothing except a large number of beautiful girls. But then one of the molecules notices something strange. North doesn't understand what the girl is doing. He only sees a black spot spreading across the floor. At this moment, his phone rings and his boss orders him to go to the copy room and clean it. The girl who spills the ink without a trace turns out to be our vice president. Such dirty tricks clearly bring her pleasure. North replies that he will be right away and thinks that, since she wants to deal with him, he will play with her a little. Entering the copying room, the main character froze with an expression of horror on his face. A huge rainbow stain of mixed ink was spilled all over the floor. Kaylee greets the janitor and regrets that he had to come here because of her, mentioning her sister's poor health, so she was forced to call him. North looks at this whole picture with bewilderment and wonders how this could happen. The vice president pretends to be innocent and says that she accidentally dropped the ink, but the main character doesn't think it was an accident. Kaylee says it's good that the boss isn't here today, otherwise she would have been scolded very badly. North doesn't believe anything this girl says. In his life, he has met many people who wanted to deceive him, but so far no one has succeeded. The main character gets to work and says to be more careful next time. Kaylee sees the lack of attention on his part and is surprised by this. The girl thinks that there is no man who would not like her, but at the same time she begins to fear that her charm has decreased with age. She quickly tries to drive away such thoughts, recognizing herself as the best in everything, and at the same time thanks the cleaner. While scrubbing the floor, North wonders if she is really so happy that she is putting a spoke in his wheels. Kaylee runs up to the janitor and grabs his card hanging around his neck with information. She says that her youngest is also named North, coincidentally. But the girl notes that her brother is not as tall as his namesake, and North informs her about a button on her collar that is trying to come off. Kaylee folds her arms over her chest in embarrassment, blushing, and says where Mr. Sheps is looking. The main character sees the vice president's poor acting. She is no match for him. She is too young and inexperienced. Inside the girl, everything is boiling with anger. How dare he look at her delicate skin? She wants to finish him off right now. North finished the job and asks if there is anything else that needs to be cleaned. Kaylee praises him and notes how clean it is now. The cleaner wants to leave, but Miss Fema stands in his way with a mug of tea, offering him a taste of it in gratitude for his work. North suspects that something is wrong with the tea and tries to politely refuse the girl. Kaylee is really not simple. She has increased the dose of the drug in the drink and complains that she has never made tea for anyone before, and it is rude to refuse. North agrees. He needs to know what this whole show is for, and the girl is determined to make him feel all the pain on his ass. The main character smells a laxative in the drink, but drinks it, since not a single virus could do anything to it, which will benefit him from a small dose of laxative. He thanks the vice president, saying that the drink is refreshing, and she is glad that her plan was a success. North is not going to just let the girl go. He wants her to feel what real pain in the stomach is. The main character screams sharply. Kaylee wants to find out what happened, because his scream scared her. He approaches her and says that he wants to hear her opinion, and provides information about his assumption that the girl from the 8th floor has a grudge against him. North shares his observations with her. Wherever he goes, cameras are constantly pointed at him. To pull this off, you need to be from the administrative department. Kaylee thinks to herself that the janitor turned out to be much more perceptive than she thought, and says that just because someone is watching doesn't mean anyone is interested in him. North speaks out. At first he thought so. Who would think of keeping an eye on just a little janitor? This only makes sense if he offended someone. Kaylee tells him that he is a good person and does not believe that he would hurt anyone, to which the janitor agrees and assumes that then someone will like him. North arrogantly continues to argue that if someone liked him, then it's creepy because he's a simple janitor. This means that the girl watching him is not far-sighted, ugly, her character is terrible. All these words stick like arrows into Kaylee's pride. The main character speaks about the fear that he will not be able to resist this alone and hopes that the vice president will help him. Saying this, he puts his hand on her shoulder. He left the virus on her shoulder. North thanked the girl for listening to his problem and went on to do his job. Kaylee is left alone in the copy room, and now she is gloating because in 3 hours, the effects of the drug will overtake her victim. North stands at the bus stop and reads information about the golden diarrhea virus, which takes effect after 3 hours. He regrets that he will not be able to look at a beautiful woman in trouble. At that moment, a red car drives up to him. The window rolls down and the vice president appears behind it. She is shocked by this coincidence because she did not expect to meet him after work. The main character looks at her with a grin, trying to understand what she is up to this time. Turning on her natural charm, the girl once again thanks him for his help and offers to go to dinner together. North hesitates but still climbs into the car and asks where they will go to eat, to which Kaylee maintains intrigue and talks about one good place. The girl presses the gas pedal to the floor and the car suddenly takes off. The intriguer says that upon arrival, he will see everything for himself. After driving a short amount of time, the main character notices that they are leaving the city and tells her the assumption that they are going to eat in the village. In her head, the girl would never in her life sit down to eat at the same table with such, in her opinion, rabble, but to avert suspicion, she came up with a legend about the farm restaurant where they were supposedly heading. North understands her evil plan to take him to a place where there are no toilets in order to make him a laughing stock. While Kaylee thinks about the speedy onset of the effect of her drug, she does not even suspect what trap she has driven herself into. They both begin a countdown in their heads, anticipating the sweetness of revenge, but something does not go according to plan. The vice president doesn't understand, according to her calculations, that very fateful moment has come, but nothing happens. She immediately thought about the possibly expired pills. But then, unexpectedly for herself, her stomach begins to mercilessly twist. She clutches her stomach and does not understand how this could happen to her. The car suddenly slows down at the curb. The girl, grabbing a couple of napkins, opens the door and gets out of the car. North shouts to her from the car that he doesn't see a restaurant here, to which he receives a rude order to sit in the car. He gets out of the car to enjoy the spectacle, simultaneously asking the question why the lady is climbing into the bushes, and she screams that he should not follow her. Crossing his arms over his chest, the main character says that she can directly say if she wants to go to the toilet, otherwise he will think that she has a crazy fetish. Furious, Kaylee calls him an idiot and asks him what else he would do in the middle of the bush with a piece of paper. The girl decides to walk a little further so that her companion does not see this humiliating picture. Having walked a little further, she makes up her mind and begins to take off her skirt. But before the girl had time to lower her bottom completely, North screams about the possibility of snakes in the thickets, and if she is in danger, she will need to call him. A second later, the main character begins to laugh and say that he was just joking. Kaylee had already mentally finished him off. But Miss Fema realizes that everything is going wrong. She doesn't just have an attack of diarrhea. She starts coughing, falls to her knees, and holds onto the ground with trembling hands. North is waiting for her at the top of the road. He begins to worry, because the girl has been gone for a long time, and wonders whether the diarrhea virus can kill a person. Then Kaylee comes out from behind the bushes onto the road, barely standing on her feet, and asks to call her an ambulance. Walking towards her companion, she trips over a stone and flies forward. The main character manages to catch her. He notices blood on the corners of her lips, and in a panic begins to think whether to call an ambulance, which is unlikely to be able to help her, or try to deal with the virus himself. Realizing how little time he has left, he decides to deal with everything himself. With his power, he tries to pull the virus out of her, but it rejects him. North understands that at this rate his companion will die. He decides to try another way, to overcome one virus with another. He creates a virus and suggests that he can magnify microscopic things through imaging. Planting another virus, he came up with a plan to grab another virus and first increase it and then destroy it. The subordinate virus instantly penetrates the girl's body, and having found a harmful colleague, encloses it within itself. By order, it, along with the golden diarrhea virus, is removed from Kaylee's body. Once in the wild, the golden diarrhea virus increases in size, which surprises the main character. Noticing the monster, North thinks how ugly this virus is. He takes a knife out of his sneaker and says that he will not allow other people to be hurt. The virus looks at its creator and speaks in an incomprehensible set of letters, while the main character, meanwhile, heats his knife with fire and vows to eliminate the monster. Golden Diarrhea attacks first, screaming, but North manages to jump out of the way. The second and final blow is delivered by Mr. Sheps with his fiery knife, which cuts the virus into two parts. Having won, the main character understands that he should not have released the virus, and thinks that in the future he needs to be very careful with this. But North did not rejoice for long. He suddenly begins to cough up blood and realize how much strength he has lost, initially intending to help, but in the end he caused damage to himself. The main character begins to remember how many dangerous missions he survived, and then he could die from a minor virus. Several hours have passed. The setting sun begins to go below the horizon. Kaylee, having regained consciousness, is trying to understand what happened. Having risen and sat down on the grass, the girl realizes that her stomach no longer hurts. In front of her, she sees North lying in blood. She tries to ask if he is okay and why there is so much blood. Kaylee assumes that this guy saved her, Although she doesn't know how, the girl makes a decision and calls an ambulance. The story of the main character began with the fact that in childhood he lost his parents and one old bastard raised him as his own son. North lived in the mountains until he was 8 years old and began studying medical books and texts at an early age. At the age of 12, the main character had already learned how to dissect corpses, which his old man was incredibly happy about. At that time, the boy thought that in the future he could become a doctor, but the old man decided to send North to war, where every day he is on the verge of death. At that moment, the young man began to think that he would become a hired soldier, but the old bastard decided to send his son on a murderous journey. North was young and cold-blooded, and when he had already shed enough blood and amassed a huge fortune, the young man thought about abdicating the throne of the supreme killer. But his plans, as usual, were changed by the old man, who staged the death of the main character and then assigned him to the national unit as a freelance agent. The old man was good. He received new documents, so no one had any questions about the young man's identity. But on one of the tasks, North learns about the death of the old bastard. Before his death, he left the main character a wooden box and wrote in his will that he could open it only when he became strong enough. The very next day after receiving the box, North tried by all means and available tools to open it. After that, he plunged into work and went on a dozen more dangerous missions before that assignment in West Africa, where he was infected with a super virus. It seems that this could have turned tragic for the main character, but thanks to such circumstances, he had a chance for a normal, calm life. Kaylee stands in the hospital corridor and talks with the doctor. He says that her companion is fine, only weak, and her tests are completely normal. The girl was surprised that no abnormalities were found. She literally felt how life was slipping away from her at that moment. North lies on a hospital bed while he sleeps. Changes occur in his body, causing him to wake up. Having woken up, he tries to understand what is happening and where he is, and at the same time he feels unusual feelings within himself. North feels that all his meridians have been cleared. He has stepped beyond the boundaries of his capabilities, which he could not cross for years. The roommate sitting on the next bed looks at the main character as if he were insane. Sheps feels that he has become 3 times stronger, and now he has perhaps the opportunity to open the box that his old man bequeathed to him. Kaylee comes into the room, holding a large basket of fruit for the patient. She wants to know how North is feeling. The main character greets the vice president, replies that he is fine, and in return asks how the girl is feeling. Miss Fema blushes and thanks Mr. Sheps, asking if he really saved her. He accepts her words of gratitude, but hints with a smile that these days they say thanks a little differently. The roommate instantly got out of bed and headed towards the exit, deciding not to disturb the girl to thank his neighbor. Kaylee stands in incomprehension. North explains that he woke up and discovered that he had been in a coma for several days, and if he did not show up for work today, he would be fired. Kaylee reassures him, assuring him of the company's humanity towards its employees, and that she will personally help him take time off. The main character continues to make hints, says that he sweeps the streets, is not rich himself, and has hospital bills. Miss Fema reports to him that she has already paid all the hospital bills and will reimburse him for all the days he missed. Having dealt with the main issues, North wants to talk about how much his help cost the girl in a day, which makes her stunned again. He hopes for her understanding. Without his medical skills, she would have died. Her companion risked his life for her and warns that he will not ask for much money. Kaylee is thinking, although she is grateful to North for her salvation, she is not too self-confident. The guys begin to bargain. The girl offers $1,000, to which Sheps does not agree. She raises the amount to $10,000, to which the main character asks whether the life of the vice president of their company is worth $10,000. Miss Fema is shocked by such impudence, if not 10,000. Then it turns out he wants 100,000. Smiling, North says that this will suit him, because after all, she has a high position in the company, and such an amount is like a drop in the bucket for her. A flame of rage is blazing inside the girl, but outwardly she calmly says that such a sum is really not that big for her, but first she would like them to resolve one issue. Blushing, she lowers her voice to a whisper. Kaylee says that he should know. She is decent and innocent. That day in a coma, the girl was helpless and vulnerable, and he is, after all, a man. A neighbor looks back into the room. hearing the screams of North, who claims that he is not that kind of person, and is confronted by a girl who cannot imagine what he could do to her. The vice president reminds that she also saved him when he lost consciousness, and in general she did not force him to save her. It was enough to call an ambulance so they can be even. Kaylee continues to stick to her line with the idea that North could take advantage of her. The main character gets tired of making excuses and says that he doesn't need the money. The heroine's face immediately changes. She smiles and thanks him. With all his desire, he won't be able to defeat her here. Sheps angrily gets out of bed and decides to go home, having previously taken the deposit back for paying for the treatment. Kaylee went with him to return the money she deposited into the account and give it to North. With great happiness, the main character counts the bills, hoping that this amount will be enough for him for some time. Before leaving, he finally decided to find out the name of his friend in misfortune. Kaylee passed away, saying goodbye. He decides to go about his business. Looking after him, the girl thinks she wanted to invite him to dinner, but now he can forget about it. Arriving at his old man's house, the main character begins to turn all the chest of drawers out, scattering books and boxes in search of a wooden box. But then North remembers that he used the box as a stand for a table leg. Grabbing it, he thinks that his old man must have left something good in it. Taking the box with both hands, he exerts all his strength because he has been waiting for this moment for so many years. The box gave way. North opened it and saw that there was a simple notebook there. This drove him crazy. Out of despair, he threw them into the corner of the room. Out of anger, the main character reached into the refrigerator to take a can of cold beer, cursing the old man at the same time. Behind him, a blue glow begins to come from the open box, and a projection of a person appears. North takes a sip of beer in frustration, not seeing what is happening behind him. The ghost man turns and shouts that he and the little bastard haven't seen each other for a long time. In surprise, Shep spits out his beer and can't believe his ears. His late old man is really standing in front of him, who begins his monologue. He says that North will see this video when he is no longer alive. With a smile on his face and a little excited, the main character asks what game his father is playing this time. He continues to broadcast from the box that if Shep sees him, then his power has reached its peak, and he must tell him some things. The father reveals the true story of his death. In fact, he died from a serious injury in a martial arts competition. In truth, he is the head of Hammurabi Palace, an ancient sect. They have a conflict with another sect called Flying Feathers, and every 30 years both sects compete. At the moment, the Flying Feathers have a greater advantage in winning, but this was not always the case. In the 63rd generation, the Palace sect numbered about 3 disciples, and in the 64th generation, North Sheps remained the only member of the palace. The main character cannot believe it. He is the only remaining student. The old man continues to provide a stream of information. The book left in the box is a masterpiece of his school. He orders his son to practice on it and take revenge for the sect. The son, of course, is shocked by all the information revealed to him and thinks that his father again wants to send him to certain death. The old man says that he knows his boy, so to prevent an accident, he poisoned North. And if his son does not study the book and does not cleanse his veins of poison with the help of knowledge, he will not live longer than 10 years. Sheps runs to the box screaming. Finally, his father's projection says that if he persistently cultivates, he will not only cleanse himself of poison, but also reach a new kingdom. Lying on the couch, North thinks about how the poison will get along with the supervirus inside him. So far, he cannot deal with the supervirus itself, because last time his strength was barely enough to fight the diarrhea virus. The main character understands that even after death, his cursed old man will not allow him to live a quiet life. To his surprise, the book turned out to be really useful. He reads about the existing 6 layers, and that even the geniuses of the previous generation were not able to step over to the 3rd of the layers. The main character decides to apply the knowledge gained from the book and realizes that cultivating the secret technique will be really difficult. He learns that internal energy is a tyrannical force, its quantity is limited, and that there is Kuai energy, it is soft and has an inexhaustible supply. This knowledge was brought out by his old man. If North continues like this, his strength will increase, but to defeat the Flying Feather sect, he will need to break through to the 3rd layer. Thus, by breaking through to the 3rd layer, he will discover a new world, This may allow him to refine the elixir of longevity and extend his life to 3,000 years. But at the moment he has reached the limit of his capabilities. The only joyful thought for him is that the competition of sex is still more than 20 years away. He is distracted from the pile of thoughts in his head by a ringing on the phone. It was the vice president who decided to disturb her victim. From the receiver, you can hear the question why North didn't go to work today, to which he replies that he has such important matters that he even forgot to warn everyone. Kaylee barely holds back a scream, pulls herself together and tells him she'll take the day off for him and wants him to try not to do that again. The main character promises to improve and, as a sign of gratitude, invites the girls to dinner tomorrow night. Standing at the panoramic window overlooking the city, the girl asks and voices the assumption that this is a date. North understands that he can't give it back, so he replies that it's kind of like that, without understanding why he invited her to dinner. He suspects that by eating Western food and drinking a bottle of 200-year-old Lafitte, his strategic reserve of money will simply dissolve. Miss Fima acts inaccessible, talks about the line of men who dream of inviting her to dinner, and if she agrees, would it be unfair to the others? For a second, the young man is happy about her bickering and says that she is right, and he is an immoral person who should be rejected. But Kaylee has already decided everything for herself, and she is ready, for the sake of his sincere love, to think about who, besides, she has not been to the Champs-Élysées for a long time and is not a Lafitte. The girl begins to further list her desires. In fear, North simply decides to quickly turn off the phone. After hanging up, the phone rang again. Shep saw Emma's number and picked up the phone, deciding that she was calling him about her debt. But a man's voice sounds on the phone, asking if the red scarf is in touch with him. North is horrified. Why men's voices are coming from the phone? What kind of red scarf? He thinks that they decided to play a trick on him. The main character says that they will not be able to deceive him, and he will now hang up. But then they give him information that his girlfriend is with them and ask Emma to say hello to North. The girl screams that her uncle should not come himself. There are many criminals next to her and asks him to call the police. The main character hears a man yelling at his girlfriend and telling her to shut up, to which North asks what they want. The thug gives Emma's uncle 30 minutes to get to the place whose address he will send over the phone. The criminal also warned that if Sheps does not come alone, he will kill his girlfriend. The main character agrees, and after hanging up, sets off on his way. At this time, the boss tells all his minions to be ready to make mincemeat out of the enemy. Hector approaches the hostage with a crutch and begins to threaten her that once they are done with her uncle, he will make her want to die. One of the bandits shows fear and asks if they can resist the enemy, to which he gets hit on the head by another member of the gang, who tells him not to doubt because they are under the leadership of the boss Theodore himself. The boss decides to approach Emma and explain that he is not the kind of person who does not distinguish between insults. He promises that if the red scarf comes to the meeting and does not break the agreement, then he will not bother her. Hector is against this situation, in his opinion. The girl is to blame for the fact that they were maimed and wants to torture her to death. Theodore at this moment thinks that his comrade in arms is not worthy to have fun with such a girl. The boss thinks that in order to have fun with such a cutie, you need to be a heroic person like him. He says that everything should be according to reason. They were beaten by a red scarf, and the lady had nothing to do with it. Hector is shocked. He fundamentally disagrees with the leader's statement and thinks to himself that he just wants to lose with his woman. The boss says that he is sorry because the girl has to go through all this. He decides to introduce himself to the young lady. His name is Theodore Revan, and he has a certain weight in this quarter. Emma asks Theodore not to go that far and to spare her uncle, and she will repay them later. The head comes up to her, and taking her by the chin, asks how much the service will cost, and he is afraid that it will not be enough. The boss looms over her and tells her that he can keep her uncle alive. He swings at the captive and slaps her in the face, continuing to say that he can save the life of the red scarf only after his explanation. The captive shows her character and shouts that he will get what is due to him, to which he hears the answer. Theodore says that she cannot survive alone in the jungle. Suddenly, a sharp bang is heard, which echoes throughout the hangar. The whole gang is on alert. Hector, seeing a figure in the passage, shouts to the leader that this is the same bastard. Emma also shouts for her uncle to run because they have weapons. But our main character is not going to run anywhere. He is gradually surrounded by bandits with bats and knives at the ready. Theodore sits in a chair and lights a cigar. He notes North's courage in coming here alone, and that he sees him as a man. This makes him show respect. To which the main character sarcastically says that Theo's mother knows the Northman well or not, and asks if she conveyed this to him. The henchman froze in fear, and the head of the gang began to shout that North would die today. The main character does not know who he is crossing the road with. Not paying attention to the criminal's speech, Shep shouts for Emma to wait a little longer, and he will get them out of here. The main character tells her not to worry, because this is a free service, and when he turns around, he notices two familiar faces and asks if they are the same losers from that day. Looking into their beaten faces, he says that he didn't expect to beat their brains out that time, and asks if they want him to beat them again. Hector swears that if he doesn't beat the Red Scarf to death today, he won't be able to consider himself a man. But North ignores the bandit and turns to the leader, because if he understood correctly, then he recently slapped his girlfriend. To which Theodore tells him not to worry and think about how not to get a slap in the face himself. The main character begins to warm up while asking how such scum could gain a foothold in this area. One of the bandits decides to start the fight. With a shout and a raised bat, he runs from behind at North, trying to hit him on the head with the bat. North reacts without hesitation, kicks the thug in the face. He flies up, dropping his bat. Noticing this level of martial arts, Theo realizes that he underestimated the enemy and commands his entire gang to attack. All the bandits take off, raising their bats and knives. They are ready to fight to the death with the enemy. With the first two opponents, North makes a grab so that the bats fall out of their hands. He blocks their blows and throws them in different directions. He knocks out the hooligan flying at him with his fists with one right hand. He scatters the entire gang alone. Theo stands in shock and cannot believe that his people could not even really touch the enemy. Emma, watching this fight, is amazed because her uncle is truly magnificent. Hector falls to his knees in front of North. He asks to spare him because he is now a cripple and cannot do anything in this condition. The main character asks him to wait for now. His turn will come, and he will settle scores with him later. The bully continues to beg Sheps to let him go. Then he will serve him and treat Emma as his own sister. Theodore says that his enemy is really something. North considers him crazy since he is still here after what he saw. The gang leader says that this is the first time he has encountered such a rival, and as he says this, he puts one hand behind his back. Noticing this movement, North says that if the enemy wants to get a gun, let him do it right away, and he doesn't see the point in chatting about it. Theo takes out a gun and points it directly at the main character, enthusiastically saying that this is a real gun. Noticing the changed outcome of the game, the hooligan who begged for forgiveness runs up to the boss and begins to have North immediately kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Theodore is furious at such a defector and, without holding back, kicks Hector in the face. Then he points the gun at the traitor and asks what right he has to brag here, promising to kill him right now. North decides to intervene and ask if he was wrong in assuming that the leader was holding a Glock 17, and he sincerely hopes that Theo did not fill it with domestic bullets because they can explode in the barrel. Annoyed, the boss points a gun at the protagonist, saying that he doesn't need to be brave. He won't defeat a bullet with his fists, but instead can become his follower. However, if his opponent refuses his goodwill, he will leave his life right here and now. With a grin on his face, Shep says that he knows why Theo still hasn't fired, because Theo is a weakling and is simply afraid to pull the trigger. The boss does not tolerate such impudence and begins to shout that he is not afraid and that today he will kill North. The special agent acts quickly and snatches the gun from the slow leader. And again they switched roles. Shep says that when Theodore was playing with dirt, he was already playing with weapons, and also decides to clarify how much this piece of crap cost. The leader replies that for 50,000, to which he receives a butt on the head, and in addition, a tirade from North that he bought a fake. The main character instantly disassembles the gun into parts and throws them in front of Theo, asking him whether he is rich or so stupid. The boss understands that it's all over and admits that he was wrong, to which he hears that there is no need to talk about it, but it is better to show sincerity. Theodore takes out a knife and, while sitting, sticks it into his left leg, asking if Brother North is happy. The winner stands and, picking his nose, replies that, of course, this is not enough. Theo, gathering his strength, thrusts the knife into his right leg a little higher, to which he hears that this is still not sincere enough. The leader begs North, who is standing in front of him, to forgive him because he has an elderly grandmother and a young wife in his care whom he cannot leave alone. He also turns to Miss Heistonen, saying that he was kind to her and protected her from the guys from the gang, and now he asks for help. Emma asks her uncle to stop because she is sure that everyone has already been punished enough and they will no longer dare to do anything bad in the future. North releases the remaining criminals and begins to hint about the money he needs, and he spent it on the trip. Plus, he was very scared from this situation. Theodore completely agrees and admits that he must compensate for moral damage. He asks what amount is needed. He will compensate for everything. The winner demands $1 million, for which the loser has nothing left. As he agrees, he asks for the card number and promises to transfer the entire amount tomorrow. Uncle comes up to Emma and unties her hands, reassuring her that everything will be fine, and now they will finally leave this place. Before leaving, Theo hands the main character a business card, so that if he needs anything, he can always call, and gives him the keys to his car, saying that if it weren't for his legs, he would have driven them himself. Going outside and getting into the car, North notes that the gang leader knows a lot about cars, because it is not only luxurious, but also very nimble. Emma is embarrassed and thanks her uncle for saving her, because if it weren't for him, she doesn't know how it could have ended. Sheps boils it all down to the fact that she has already paid for the service, and besides, she is the daughter of Heistonen's brother, and they have a relationship, so he will not even take compensation from her for car travel. To which the girl reminds him that he just blackmailed Theo's boss for a whole $1 million, so she definitely won't reimburse the expenses for the car. But Sheps will explain to her that he didn't blackmail anyone. This is compensation for moral damage. She can't even imagine how nervous he was when that call came. These words made Emma's heart beat faster, because her uncle was nervous about her, and he really cares about her. The girl is trying to pacify her heart and thoughts because, firstly, she already has a boyfriend, and secondly, this is, after all, her Uncle North. But even despite all the above factors, he really looks cool to her. She says that her uncle is really cool to her, to which she hears the answer about how quite ordinary he is. Emma also decides to offer to call him brother instead of uncle, and is refused because North is already accustomed to such treatment, and at the very beginning he himself gave her the chance to call him that. To which the girl begins to sulk and say that she has changed her mind because their age difference is not very big. The uncle says that he and her father are old friends and calling him uncle is more correct. He will never call her little sister. He gives her a ride home and decides to wait until the girl goes up to her apartment. Turning around, Emma decides to express how she feels about North. For her, it's as if he's built a high wall in his heart. At first glance, he seems so sociable, but as soon as someone wants to get close to him, he will find a big cold wall. The main character laughs, starting to pretend to be a fool who has not even finished high school and is not able to understand what she is talking about. Smiling back, Emma says that she always dreamed of an older brother, and that's why she wanted to treat him like that, without having any bad thoughts. The girl also says that she noticed what an excellent driver he is, plus he knows martial arts. Having all this, she wonders why he works as a simple cleaner. Sheps replies that cleaning dirty things gives him peace of mind, and asks Emma if it's bad to work as a cleaner. The heroine says that she does not believe her uncle's excuses. She feels that he has been through a lot, and his body and mind are quite exhausted. The main character claims that she embellishes everything too much because he doesn't even have a driver's license. North is about to leave and tells Emma to quickly go home because she's most likely tired this day. Finally, the heroine shouts to him to think about the words she said and not forget to return the car to the owner. On the way home, the girl thinks about how much her savior had to go through in his life. Sitting in the car, North thinks about how young Emma is, but she's already too quick-witted. He feels cold in the car. Raising his head, he sees an open hatch from which the starry sky can be seen. As he starts the car, he wonders when was the last time he looked at the stars. The main character comes to an ATM to withdraw money and treat himself to something tasty. Having withdrawn the money, he feels that someone is watching him. North thinks whether the pickpocket dares to attack him or not. Sheps notices that a girl is stealthily looking at him around the nearest corner. Just as he wanted to think about how she would dare to steal money from him, the stranger jumped out in front of him, blocking his way and shouting for him to wait. The main character doesn't understand anything. He assumes this is her first robbery. That's why everything is so unprofessional. The girl with a serious expression asks loudly how much money he withdrew. North asks if she thinks the question is harsh, to which she rephrases it by asking if he needs a favor. She offers a service that will make him happy. He turns around and says she'd better look for someone else. With a trembling voice, she asks him to wait, saying that she doesn't need much. She promises that the service will cost him cheap. North decides to clarify how cheap it is because he doesn't need it. With her hands folded across her chest, she looks straight into the stranger's face, tears running down her cheeks, and she names the price at $20,000. The main character begins to laugh, saying that no one will pay her that kind of money. The girl answers in confusion that she is a student and hands him a student's card. Holding the documents in her hands, the stranger bursts into tears and says that she has just reached adulthood. This is her first time and, in general, she looks good. Looking through the documents, he finds out that the girl's name is Tina and says that he does not believe in the authenticity of her documents. The girl desperately claims that if he doesn't believe her, she can check with her university department. North throws her documents at her feet and tells her to stop doing things like that and not upset her mom. Hearing this, the girl says that her mother is in the hospital and she agrees to do it for $15,000. She begins to get hysterical. The main character looks at the girl and remembers himself when he cried and told the old man to accept him. North asks if she's really ready to do this. She nods and he offers her a room in a hotel. Tina sits quietly on the edge of the hotel bed, waiting for North to arrive. Entering the room with a wad of money, the main character asks him to pour warm water because it was very cold outside. The girl obediently pours and hands him a glass of water, to which she hears gratitude and a request to go take a shower. Tina asks her client to introduce himself, but North doesn't see any particular need for this. But he still introduces himself that his name is North Sheps. He is 25 years old and he works as a cleaner, to which the girl is sincerely surprised. Sheps says that, of course, this is not a particularly respectable profession, to which Tina denies and says that a person's qualities are more important than any external things. North commands and orders her to leave philosophy and go take a shower. Tina also obediently went towards the shower, after asking if she could close the door to the bathroom. Closing the door behind her, the girl thought that her client was different from other men, who always looked at her with lustful eyes. She feels like he doesn't want to hurt her. On the contrary, he wants to help her. Standing under the warm streams of water, Tina wonders how much the cleaners are paid, because $20,000 is not a small amount. She believes that since everything has turned out this way, she's obliged to fulfill her current role so that she does not remain indebted to him. Tina comes out of the bath, barely covering her private parts with a towel, and tells North that she has finished taking a shower. Looking at how defenseless she seems, he again sees memories where he is just as helpless. Sheps gets up and takes another towel passing by Tina. He throws it over her head, completely covering her. Wrapped in a towel, Tina, confused, wants to know if he has changed his mind about the service. Her client replies that he is not in the mood, but he will fulfill his promise, assuring that she will not lose a cent of what she deserves. But before North gives her the money, he wants to know why she decided to sell herself. Tina admits that her mother is in the hospital and she needs an operation. She needs to raise money before tomorrow, otherwise her mother will be in danger. The main character wonders whether these $20,000 will solve her mother's illness, to which the girl begins to shake her head negatively. North wants to know if Tina is going to sell herself further. She replies that she is ready to do anything if only her mother survives. Sheps has a counteroffer. He gives her $200,000 for 2 years in advance. In return, she will cook for him and clean at any time. Tina doesn't understand why he needs her because he can hire a professional cleaner and cook. To which the main character begins to explain that she will have to return this money and will have to pay additional interest. The girl begins to cry with happiness, thanks her savior. For her, he really turned out to be a good person. North is embarrassed because he understands that this is interest and 2 years of her free labor, and after that she considers him good. Tina carefully reads the contract, and Sheps hurries her because she wants to go home quickly. The girl, in the end, puts her signature. Standing in the doorway, the main character finally tells her not to do anything stupid anymore. Otherwise, her mother will be upset to learn about it. Happy Tina lies down on the bed and cries with happiness. She has finally met a good man. North walks down the street and thinks about today. He became a sponsor for a student. If his old man knew about it, he would laugh at him. The next day, in the elevator, the cleaner receives a message on his phone about a transfer of funds in the amount of 15 million. It was Theodore who sent him the promised moral damages, adding another 500,000 to the amount. He is clearly not stupid and will be useful in the future, North reflects. Coming out of the elevator, he notices an ice lady he knows. They met again, and he wants to know how she is doing. She turns away, pointedly ignoring him, to which he begins to remind him that he can post her photo on the forum. She replies that he wouldn't dare. The main character begins to tease Lilith by showing her a photograph with inscriptions on his face. She calls him vile and shameless. North approaches her and says that she doesn't know him well. If they knew each other, she would know how truly vile and unscrupulous he is. The head of the office begins to shout that she has met many people like him, but now she does not have time and asks not to bother her. Kaylee watches the showdown between the janitor and Lilith on cameras. She thinks what North has done and why her sister is so offended. In the middle of her thoughts, Miss Paulman bursts into the office and asks how everything is going with this bastard. But her sister had too much work and did not have time for revenge. Kaylee is very curious why her older sister hasn't shown up at work for several days. Maybe she has a boyfriend. Lilith sits on the sofa and says that she doesn't have a boyfriend, but most likely she will get married soon. Miss Fema does not understand anything and asks her sister to explain herself. Lilith says that she is worried and has just come to discuss this with her. The younger sister is unhappy when she learns that Lilith's chosen one will be an unpleasant guy named Surin. Kaylee doesn't understand how Lilith's father doesn't see this bastard with a human face and an animal heart as his daughter's future husband. But his parents like him because he is the future president of a corporation. He has good manners and says and does things with grace. The younger sister does not calm down and declares that he looks like a hypocrite. Lilith understands that this may be wrong, but her father is dying and the doctors say that time is running out. Having learned about her uncle's condition, Kaylee understands his motives for quickly getting his daughter married. But then an idea comes into her head. What if her older sister takes the initiative and brings a guy home? Miss Paulman doesn't think her little sister's ideas bode well. But Kaylee was delighted with her idea. 2 birds with 1 stone. Dad would be happy and Surin would give up and retreat. The only question is where they will find her a boyfriend. But the younger sister decides to take matters into her own hands and find a person who can be trusted in such a matter. Lilith agrees and says that she needs to run on business that has accumulated in her absence. Kaylee is left alone and begins to think about a suitable candidate. For some reason, as soon as she thinks about a suitable person, North Sheps appears to her. His candidacy is suitable, since he is greedy for money and will agree to play the role of a guy. But there is a problem. Lilith hates him. The vice president decides to set up a meeting and calls North directly. He doesn't really want to pick up the phone because he knows that the conversation will turn to dinner. He answers and she immediately calls him to go to the parking lot. From there, they will go to the restaurant. North is not happy about this set of circumstances. Just yesterday, he gave away a large amount of money, and today he will be scammed again. Going down to the parking lot, he immediately notices a red car with its headlights on and gets into it. As soon as Sheps finds out that they are going to the Champs-Élysées, he expresses dissatisfaction and calls it waste. Looking at Kaylee, he asks what happened to her and what's on her mind. She voices that she wants to ask North to do her a small favor. She does not decide to tell him now about her idea. The main character does not understand what happened, and in the meantime, they have already arrived at the restaurant. Her companion, getting out of the car, stands staring at the great knowledge of the restaurant, and Kaylee urges him to go inside. As soon as the two of them enter the hall, the waiters immediately pay attention, noting how beautiful the girl is and the unsightly guy next to her. The vice president wants to find out whether her companion likes such places. North replies that it doesn't matter to him. The main thing is to fill his stomach. Kaylee says this is her first time having dinner alone with a man, so she chose a decent place for it. Miss Fema calls the waiter and places an order: 2 steaks, a fruit salad, and a bottle of 92 Lafitte. Noticing the displeasure on North's face, she asks what's wrong, and he begins to talk out loud about the price of the dishes, which cost about 1,000, and the wine, which costs several hundred. But he says that he can afford to pay for everything today. The waiter comes up and puts a steak on the table for him. North asks the waiter how much the wine he brought him costs. The waiter quotes the price at $21,000 per bottle. While drinking a glass, the main character says that he has no doubt that $50 wine from the store will be better than this. The waiter becomes very embarrassed by such statements, but the girl calms him down and says that her companion was just joking. When the employee left, she asked why he said that about the famous Lafitte, to which she received a counter-question whether she knew anything about wine. She answers in the negative, but wonders if the cleaner knows about red wine. North thinks to himself that not really, but he somehow emptied the entire collection of Old Man Rothschild. Kaylee reminds him that she asked him a question, to which he replies that he only knows about sweeping floors and not about wine, but on the internet they write that Lafitte 92 consists of a mixture of pine cones and violets. The girl claims that when eating it, you can also feel the taste of jasmine, and she doubts that he is able to feel this taste. North says that he can use his sense of smell, even in a crowd. He can find a person in the crowd by body odor. His companion is surprised by this ability and offers to see if he can remember the smell of her sister and whether she has it on her. To which he receives an answer. The janitor smells a familiar smell, and he asks if that rude woman in the elevator is her sister. Kaylee confirms this information and wants to know why her sister is so angry at him. Having learned the whole story, she sits and does not understand how he could do this to her sister. North, deciding that they have already finished, tells the vice president to go to the car and wait for him for a couple of minutes. She is against it and doesn't understand why they can't leave together, to which the main character says that she will only be a burden because she won't be able to run quickly. Finally, it dawns on Kaylee that he doesn't want to pay for dinner, and she asks where the money she gave him is. North insists that the Lafitte was fake, but the girl doesn't think fake wine is a reason to leave without paying. But some kind of excitement flares up in her, and she decides that she will wait for her companion in the car while Sheps orders 2 more steaks. Having served a couple more steaks, the waiter approaches him, offering to pay the bill, to which the main character asks to wait a minute. Before the waiter comes to his senses, North runs past him. The waiter shouts to the security that the intruder needs to be apprehended. Running out into the street, he immediately jumps into the car, giving the command to start the car and accelerate. In order not to tarnish her reputation, the girl rushes along the highway at maximum speed, but at one moment she slows down and says that her companion can get off here. North asks if she could give him a lift into town, or if she wants him to spend money on a taxi, to which Kaylee replies that he has already saved $20,000 on dinner today. The car drives away, leaving dust behind, and in parting, the girl says not to be late for work tomorrow. North decides not to spend money on a taxi, just walk to the city. But our hero didn't manage to get far because he was hit by a blue car at speed in the dark. The car slows down and stops, while Sheps lies on the asphalt. A girl who is already painfully familiar to us runs out of the blue car. Lilith runs in panic, asking how he feels and whether he can get up. She panics and doesn't understand what to do, and as luck would have it, her phone is dead. North, lying down, looks at her and thinks she just hit a man. But for some reason, she herself does everything like a turtle. Even in such moments, the entrepreneurial spirit does not leave the main character. The girl is the general director, and you can make good money from this. Sheps raises one hand up to attract the attention of the absent-minded Lilith, who, seeing this, is glad that he is still alive. She sits down next to him and apologizes, asks where his phone is, she will call an ambulance, but North assumes that his phone is broken. North begins to lament and ask why she is doing this to him, where he made such a mistake in life. He doesn't want to die now. Lilith swears that she didn't do it on purpose and asks again where his phone is. The girl blames herself. There was no need to be distracted by thoughts about Surin. Although North is hated by her, he is a living person. The main character says that he does not blame her for this. Such is life, and before he dies, Sheps wants her to fulfill one of his requests. The girl takes his hand and says that if she can help him with anything, then she will do everything. North asks her to transfer money to her bank account. Lilith is in a stupor. The victim explains that he lived in poverty for more than 20 years and wants to leave rich for another world, so that when he meets his parents there, he will not be ashamed. The girl agrees. North hands her his phone with his account number already indicated. While the transfers were being made, a criminal gang approach the guys along the highway. The gang leader greets people on his way and introduces himself as Sermon, and also introduces his biker friends. Lilith asks what kind of people they are, since when they see someone in an accident, they don't want to help and asks them to stop talking nonsense. Lying on the asphalt, the main character thinks what is happening here. He wanted to somehow get out of his delicate situation, but in the end, these people created problems for him. Sermon says that there is no point in talking about conscience. He sees that the victim is no longer a tenant, so he offers a deal. If the girl serves him and her friends well, they will bear false witness in her favor. Miss Paulman rises from the ground and threatens that he will regret what he said today. The gang leader runs up and grabs the girl's face, saying how lucky she is that he has a good character. If there was anyone else, he wouldn't be so polite. Lilith is not going to tolerate such an attitude towards herself and slaps the arrogant bandit in the face. She shouts that she is ashamed to call him a man, and with a running start, she hits Sermon with the tip of her heel right in the groin. The boss, humiliated by a strong woman, orders his biker friends to bring this little bitch to him. Lilith considers this act arrogant, because it turns out there are still people who dare to touch the Paulman family. The gang stopped. They wondered if this girl could really be from the Paulman family. But when Sermon heard this, he only became more amused, because he has a political family, and the Paulmans are businessmen, and businessmen are afraid of officials, and he tells the guys not to be afraid. He will settle all the issues. The girl does not believe that such a bastard was born into a family of politicians, which has always been famous for its prudence. Lilith sees thugs running towards her, and she thinks that she is not able to defend herself. There is nothing to say about North. The bandit is already reaching out to her, and Miss Paulman decides to simply close her eyes out of fear. But then a man flies in front of her with the speed of lightning and kicks the biker in the face. This man turns out to be North. She asks if he is okay, because just a couple of minutes ago he was lying dying on the asphalt, to which she receives a counter question if she is okay. Sheps makes a promise that while he is here, no one will dare to lay a finger on the girl. North turns and, slightly perplexed, asks what this place is and why he is here. Lilith doesn't understand. The victim apparently lost his memory. The main character begins to say that he lived all his life in the mountains, and suddenly everything went dark, and now he found himself here. He begins to shout at the bandits. How dare they rob a woman? And suddenly North declares himself a priest who will act on behalf of heaven. The girl stands there and doesn't understand whether her brain was so damaged by the blow or whether he's faking it. Sheps decides to reassure Lilith, saying that in their dynasty, such evil people will not be allowed to do evil. Flexing his fists, North tells her to wait until he defeats all the evil people and will be safe. Sermon orders to kill the bastard who is getting on his nerves, and he himself is the first to run into battle against him. Sheps blocks the blow and hits the enemy so hard that he finds himself lying at the feet of his comrades. At the speed of light, the main character flies up to another group of bandits and scatters them in different directions. The remaining untouched bikers fall on their faces, saying that they made a big mistake and that the priest should spare them. North wants them to make a sacred oath if they repent, which the criminals swear to, and if they change their minds, they will strike the heavens. The main character decides to let the offenders go, but not empty-handed. He sends the gonorrhea virus after them. While running away, the hooligans think, what a stupid priest, they will now return and bring even more people with them. Sheps thinks that these people's acting skills are extremely poor, although he should forget about it, because the attackers themselves will soon die from diarrhea. Lilith still offers to call the police, but North tells her not to remember past grievances, to which the girl agrees and wants to find out the name of the elder in order to thank him. The main character understands that she has just transferred him $1 million, and now, most likely, she is checking on him. He introduces himself as Kane Penkei. Miss Paulman calls him shameless, and she thinks he is lying, to which North retorts and says that he came out and protected her, so how can he be shameless? After a pause, the young man begins to laugh. He felt the tense atmosphere and therefore acted out a drama with the time traveler. He asks Lilith to relax. The girl is not happy with this proposal because she was very worried and mentions that when he asked her for money, this, apparently, was also to relax her. North begins to back away and, taking off, runs away, saying that they will see each other at work tomorrow. Lilith becomes furious and calls him a bastard. Along the way, Sheps thinks that she is actually not so bad, if only she would stop making a face as if everyone in this world owes her money. Arriving home, he decides to practice, since he did not have time for this for 2 days. But he doesn't succeed, and his strength leaves him. He thinks if his old man found out that his son allows himself to be lazy, he would crawl out of his grave and start cursing. In Kaylee's office, seeing her sister's strangeness, she asks who hurt her. Lilith simply replies that she just feels bad. Miss Fema suggests that her sister has this condition because of thoughts about marriage, and they must overcome this together. The vice president offers several candidates to choose from, but they are not reliable, and they do not need any more unnecessary troubles. Lilith realizes that finding the right person will not be so easy, and she decides to ask what her younger sister thinks about North Sheps. She is not happy with her sister's choice of such a candidate for the role of a boyfriend. Miss Paulman replies that he recognizes the money, and they have very little time left. Lilith says that Suren has already completed market research and should soon return from abroad. At that moment, her mother called her and heard that Suren was flying in this evening, so tomorrow evening they were going to dinner. The mother instructs her daughter not to be too stubborn because she is no longer a child. Her father's situation is bad and they are obliged to let him go happy. After hanging up, Lilith says that there is no time to wait any longer, so Kaylee should hurry up and call North Sheps. Miss Paulman has analyzed his acting abilities and thinks that he is better suited for such a role than anyone else. With a smile on her face, North asks what important happened, since the Ice Lady herself ordered her sister to personally bring him to her. Lilith says that he is here so that they can settle scores, asks how he thinks they should settle yesterday's issue for 1 million. Sheps insists that she hit him, and he was already thinking of saying goodbye to his life. He rightly received compensation for moral damage. The girl says that he may not return her money. Instead, North will have to do something for her. The young man will have to act as her boyfriend at a party at her house. She is confident in his acting abilities because yesterday he managed to flawlessly play a time traveler. North says that with his background and appearance, no one will believe that he is her boyfriend, but Lilith doesn't care. The main thing is that he is present there. The head of the office gives him a bank card and tells him to buy him some decent clothes. North is delighted. He had to start with the fact that he will get money for it. Left alone in the office, the sisters wonder if they made the right decision. North did not waste any time and immediately went to the boutiques. He dressed up in an elegant suit that he had not worn for so many years. As he was leaving the store, his phone rang. It was Tina. Sheps immediately became worried. The girl said that she was now in the hospital and it was urgent. He needed to come. She would be waiting for him at the gate. North arrived as quickly as he could. Upon arrival, Tina says that her mother's operation did not go well and she needs to borrow money from him. While the transfer of funds is taking place, Sheps asks to accompany him to his mother's room. Tina thanks him and says that she will see him off, but her mother is in a coma, so he will not be able to talk to her. Walking down the corridor, North says that this is a rare case when he is a good guy, and here he wants to be good to the end. In front of the door of the ward, he asks the girl at what stage of cancer her mother's illness is, and learns that the woman is in the last stage. He tries to warn the girl that at the terminal stage, even $1 million may not save her mother. Tina tells how only her mother was involved in raising her, how hard it was for her, and if her mother can live at least 1 day longer, her daughter will be happy. Seeing how hard it is for the girl, hot tears running down her face, and she doesn't want to accept reality, North comes up and strokes her head. Entering the room, they see an elderly woman wearing an oxygen mask. Shep's thoughts at this moment speak only of how well this woman raised her daughter. He sees a thin sleeping bag lying next to the hospital bed and asks why Tina is sleeping on the floor, to which she receives the answer that she cannot afford a hospital bed. North turns around and says that she will now go to the head doctor and her mother will have a separate room so that Tina can also sleep there. In the office, the doctor begins to scold the main character because if he is a relative of the patient, why does he force the young girl to look after the patient day and night? North justifies himself, saying that he was on a business trip for a long time, and Tina didn't tell him anything because she was worried that as soon as he found out, he would immediately break loose and come. The main character says that now he will take care of Tina's mother, to which the doctor wants to talk to him alone. Leaving the office, the doctor says that the test results were not very good. The disease was discovered very late, and according to the patient's forecast, he will live no more than a year. Out loud, North says that Western medicine can probably work miracles, but privately, he thinks that even with knowledge of medical skills and techniques, his old man could not be cured. The doctor repeats himself. The last stage of cancer is a barrier that medicine is not yet able to overcome, and he should not say this, but he feels very sorry for the patient's daughter. North promises the doctor to talk about the future with Tina. It will be better for her to accept reality. Tina follows Sheps and tries to find out what they talked about with the doctor. North replies that they should go to the ward, and until he says so, she should not let anyone in there. The girl doesn't understand anything and wants to know his plan, but North only says that she should trust him.